Hey everyone, Mark Price here, devslopes.com, and today I just wanted to briefly talk about some caveats that you need to consider when building multiple paged applications, or with building a single page application with React, or just deciding how you want to put your multiple pages together on your website, because it's important to know how you're going to do that before you build your website, because there could be some problems. So I just want to show you my website here. So this was built a long time ago and uses Angular for multi-page applications. Well, later on, I decided that I wanted to include some React components, and I soon realized that React and Angular don't play well together at all. But then I realized there's also other problems that you might encounter as well. And so on this web page, it was these two components right here that were done with React, and basically I have a backend where I can just change the numbers on these things here, update like the students enrolled, things like that instantly, which was really cool. React is amazing, and I can use these on any pages. But the problem that I ran into was when I wanted to use these same components on a separate page. So if I would go to devslopes.com/iOS, okay, and this was a landing page, and I wanted it here too. Well, it's cool, right? I could just use Angular to have another page and put these on here. No, didn't work, because the virtual DOM has issues with React's virtual DOM has issues with other frameworks. And so the other thought was, well, I'll just create a separate index file, an actual HTML file, and then just render it from the server. But that had problems too. And let me explain some of the problems that you can run into, and so you can figure out what solution works for you. Let me pull open handy dandy Photoshop. And so this is the React way, right? So we got a nice web page here. It looks so pretty. And in here we've got, the body, right? And at the bottom of the body, or wherever you're putting it, you've got your compiled JS, okay? This is, what Babel compiles and Browserify and puts it all into compiled. We'll just call it compiled JS. It puts it all into a single script, right? And so all your JSX and all your JavaScript code goes right there. Okay, so let's call this the index page, all right? And if this is a little small, that's too big. Let's zoom out slightly. There we go. Okay, so there's our index page. But let's say we needed another page. We needed, an about page. About. All right. Well, if we're using React Router, right? We know that the router is just going to swap out views. So instead of sending you to another index or a page.html, it's just going to swap views, okay? So it's going to swap. The router is going to swap views out, keep it all on the same page, and your code can all still live right here, which is really cool. However, what happens if you have a whole separate page? This is about.html. So could you use the compiled JS over here, insert it over here too? Well, you could, but think about what's going to happen. So if I just include my scripts from my other page over here, what happens when I need to render onto this page, specifically for this page? Okay, you're going to get an error. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if I have this compiled JS right here, if I'm on my index.html and React is looking, or React DOM is looking to render a component that's not there, you're going to get an error. So let's say over here we had a component that we wanted to render, document.getElementById. There was an ID over here called, about me. Okay, that's our React component. But we're on index.html. The user's on index.html. Well, your main entry point file, like the ones we've done in the past, like your main.jsx, it's going to be looking for this about me component, and it's not going to find it, and it's going to throw an error. So that's problematic. So can you just copy it over? You can, but not really. It's not good. Another option is you could take all of your scripts, okay, and create a separate entry point just for this. So rather than your main.jsx, you could have, an about.jsx, right? And then you could create a separate compiled JS. So this could be, about compiled. So you can compile it all, which you definitely can do. You can run a script that compiles both. Up to now, we've just been using like npm start and compiling one script, but we could write a shell file, or we could build something else, or use gulp or grunt to put some automation behind it. And things start getting a little more complex, and we could compile out a second script here like this, and then you insert it here, and all your errors go away, because each one of these files has the things it needs for this particular page. But if you remember right, these compilers that we're using like Babel and Browserify, it's going to take all the files that we need, such as React, React DOM, any other dependencies we have, and it's going to wrap them all up in one big giant script. Well, if you have a separate page, it's going to do that same thing over here too. So now all of a sudden, you've got two places where there's tons of code on your server, so that increases the file of your server. Probably the same page load time, but you do have to consider it's now increasing the file size of your server because you've got duplicate code behind the scenes just so this can run. So that's problematic as well too. So if you're like thinking I have an existing website and I want to have separate pages where I put React components in, this is a problem you're going to run into. Okay, so I recommend that what you do is from the ground up, you pick how you're going to have your multi-page application, and preferably that's with, well, it's terrible writing, that's with React Router. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is, if you have an existing website, take all of your existing code and build them into components. So if you have an existing index.html with tons of stuff in it, build it into React components and then use React Router so everything's on the same page and you don't have any problems, okay? If you have tons of HTML, and that's going to take a lot of work to refactor, on your next website, of course, you could start with React Router and that's not a problem, build your whole website with it. But here's a little trick you can do. So this is what I did because I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time working with automation and hammering things out. So on this website here, I went the route of just using one compiled.js because I didn't want the duplicate code. So I have one compiled.js file. And what I did was I just did some quick checking here so we didn't get the errors. So I'm going to make it bigger here. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as the way to do it, but if you've got Angular and other things in your project, you're going to have to figure out workarounds. And so in this case here, basically I just did some quick JavaScript checks. If the element's on the page, then let's use React and render it. If this element's on the page. And so these two pages that I had here on the website, so this landing page here where these two components are right here, so that's two IDs I needed to reference, and then the main page has these two here. So basically what I did was if we're on the main page, let's just check and see, and if we're on the other page, let's check and see if they exist and then render it. So that was a quick fix if you have a Frankenstein application but you want to use React and you don't want to have duplicate code files, and if you don't want to be compiling a bunch of different files and just want to use your main compiled file, you can do this as well too. It's a little bit sloppy, but since it's a Frankenstein app anyway, and I just wanted the functionality there, it's okay. Again, I recommend from the ground up using React and components with the React Router. React Router does not work with Angular routing, and Angular routing does not work with React routing, and Angular routing does not work with React components. So because Angular uses single page applications as well and swaps views out, okay, it has issues interacting with the React DOM. So that's a problem you're going to run into as well if you're working with Angular. But anyway, point of this video is if you want to build React into multiple pages, these are problems you're going to run into, and I'm just giving you a heads up. You can feel free to reach out to me for help. There's no one solution to fixing this. I did in the very beginning create two compiled files. So I was having my Browserify, I was having it compile two different files, one for each page, and it was loading all the scripts and dependencies, and it was okay. I just really didn't want the extra file size, so I did it this way instead. But choose what you want to do. There's lots of options, and just know that if you have the chance to plan out your application, plan it out building it all in React components as well as using the React Router. Make your life much easier. But that's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com. See ya in the trenches. And remember, to get your free live help, go to devslopes.com and click on chat room. I'm there all the time, as well as a huge community of other students.